We now know the Baltimore Ravens' full 2026 schedule, and some key advantages are beginning to emerge.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome in to the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. On today's show, we know the Ravens' full 2026 schedule now. So we're going to talk about some key stretches that have become apparent here and really just break the schedule down into clumps where the Ravens have opportunities to really do some damage here this season. But first, some schedule advantages are beginning to emerge. People are starting to see the schedule and say, look at that, look at this, look at that. So we're going to talk about those as well. And honestly, I'm sure as the week goes on and we look at this even more, we will probably find more of them. But let's dive into it here again. Let's start off with the actual schedule. We'll read through it here. Week 1, Ravens going on the road to face the Colts in the season opener. Then week 2, it's the Ravens home opener versus the Saints. Week 3 at the Cowboys. They're going to Brazil, obviously, to play that game. Week 4, you got the Titans. That's at home. Week 5 at the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Then week 6 at the Browns. Week 7 versus the Bengals. Week 8 at the Bills. Week 9 versus the Jaguars. That's Thursday Night Football. Week 10 versus the Chargers. That's Monday Night Football. Week 11, it's the Panthers away. Week 12, it's the Texans away. Week 13, that's the bye week. Week 14, coming out of that bye week, they're playing the Buccaneers at home. Week 15, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers away at Acrisure Stadium. Week 16 versus the Browns. Week 17 at the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. And then week 18 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers at home to wrap up the regular season. So again, as I talked about in a live show and on this morning's episode of the show with Ravens long snapper Nick Moore, I really do think that the Ravens have an advantageous schedule. We know they had the 9th easiest strength of schedule in terms of winning or opponent winning percentage last year. And even in terms of like miles traveled, the Ravens ranked towards the bottom half of the league in that as well, which is an advantage. The less travel you have to do, the better there. But some other schedule advantages that I think benefit Baltimore have emerged here. And we touched on some of these with Nick this morning, but I do want to continue to dive into it, where Jonas Schaefer, the Baltimore Banner, pointing out the Ravens don't get an AFC North opponent until week 6 and don't get a 2025 playoff team until week 8. I think the early part of the schedule is very advantageous for the Ravens for multiple different reasons. Number one, I do like the fact that you alternate home and away games here. If they, because again, there were the rumblings that with the Orioles playing on Sunday Night Baseball on that Sunday that week 2, the Ravens are playing. I mean, there was a possibility they could have gone on the road for 3 straight games to open up their season. But you're playing teams that are still quality NFL opponents. Again, no easy games in the NFL. These are all professionals here. But, like last year, starting off with the Bills, and then, Cleveland was fine, but then you had to go Chiefs, or no, it was Lions, then Chiefs, and you had to play the Rams in that stretch. Texans were in there. Like, it was unbelievable. 5 of their first 6 games were against division winners from the previous season. That's a little crazy. That's a little crazy. So again, you get teams that I think can be good landing spots for you. I talked about that a bunch over the last couple of shows we've done here since the schedule has come out. But I also think the key defining moment, and this kind of will, as a little spoiler for the second part of the show, the key stretch here, thinking about it more, talked about it through on the live show as well, really week 7 through 12, right before the bye week. Iceman on the live stream pointed this out, and I really do want to highlight it a little bit more here, where you have an opportunity. It's 3 home games, 3 away games. You have home, away, home, home, away, away. 2 of those games are prime time. But here's the advantage the Ravens have in that. And if you listen to this morning's episode with Nick Moore, you know this because we talked about it. The Ravens don't have to travel for either of those primetime games. Now, week 17, they will have to travel to Cincinnati to play that game. Obviously, that's something that the Bengals and Bengals fans have wanted because of the Ravens having played Cincy 4 straight years in primetime at M&T Bank Stadium. But the advantage of not having to travel for that, having the stretch of essentially, yes, you have a short week from November 1st where you play the Bills to November 5th when you play the Jaguars. But The Jaguars will have to travel into Baltimore, and then the Ravens with that extra day. It's essentially it's a mini bye, but it's an extended mini bye because you go from Thursday night, not to a Sunday 1:00 game, but to Monday night. So you essentially have 1.5 more days of rest from that Thursday night game against the Jaguars in week 9 to that Chargers game in week number 10. So I think that is an awesome little advantage there. And again, every little bit of rest helps, right? So I'm gonna take the extra day here if I am the Ravens. And Nick also outlined something about the bye week where it will give the Ravens enough time to get into a groove through those first 12 weeks without having to break that up with a bye week. And then you do get the rest later in the year, which gives a nice little break, I would say, for them there. Other things that I really like about the schedule that I do think are advantageous for the Ravens, obviously ending at home against the Steelers. I do believe that is advantageous in its own right. But honestly, like that end of season stretch, you're going to see a lot of like for the Ravens. How do I want to put it? There is going to be a lot of time between week 1 and week 15 to figure out who they are. And, if you're playing like the Steelers week 2 or the Bengals week 2, teams are obviously figuring stuff out. And obviously there are 3 new coaches in this division as well. But for Baltimore, I really wanted them, because of the way they've started the last couple of years, to get that landing pad that they can build momentum off of. So I'm essentially splitting the schedule into 3.5 parts, I guess. Technically, like it's 3 parts and then 2 half parts, which is kind of weird, but let me explain. First month of the season, weeks 1 through 4. That is where, actually, I'll simplify it. I'll just say 3 parts. Week 1 through 6, Colts, Saints, Cowboys, Titans, Falcons, Browns. That is the first part of your schedule, first month of the season, month and a half of the season. Got to, I think, come off to a fast start there. Hopefully 4-2, 5-1, maybe even 6-0. We did the prediction on the show last night, and I had them at 6-0 through their first 6 weeks. I do think they are capable of that with the schedule. Then the next part of their schedule, like we talked about, is weeks 7 through 12. So Bengals, Bills, Jaguars, Chargers, Panthers, Texans. And in that stretch, I had them going 4-2, which totally take that. And then the bye week, and then you split it up into the final 5 games of the year: Buccaneers, Steelers, Browns, Bengals, Steelers. So I don't think that's a hot take or anything, but I do believe that if you do that and you go undefeated your first 6 games, get a really good momentum thing going, heading into a pretty tough slate of teams there, and then you can end that with just 2 losses through your first 12 weeks, and then you kind of, you have to do better in the division. Just there's a lot here to unpack about the schedule, but I do think the way it's split up, you don't have you do have a lot of your good teams in the middle, like in the chunk of that schedule there. But I do think the way it's set up, the Ravens can be well prepared to head into those games and be as prepared as possible. But come up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about those key stretches a little bit more, break them down even further. We'll talk about some team trends as well. So stay tuned, buddy, coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Right now, over on FanDuel, I'm really looking at that Spurs and Timberwolves game. Right now, the Spurs on FanDuel are 5.5-point road favorites against the Timberwolves in that game 6. And I'm liking the Spurs to close out the series at that number on FanDuel. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. And the show is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. And the show is brought to you by Kalshi. The 2026 NFL schedule release is here, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. Schedule release always sparks debates. Who's overrated? Who's got a brutal stretch? And which teams are actually playoff contenders? Kalshi lets you trade on those predictions in a live market, from total wins to playoff chances and championship futures. On Kalshi, you can trade on real NFL questions like whether a team makes the playoffs or reaches a certain win total. As the season outlook changes, you can buy in or out of your position live, and it's available in all 50 states, so it's easy to jump in and follow along with the season. For example, if you think a team's schedule was set up perfectly for a playoff run, you can actually trade on that prediction before the season even starts. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the draft, pick the game, and more on Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10, Kalshi. Kalshi, trade on anything. Moving along, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Locked On Ravens Friday PM edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here. Making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. We have 5 days a week, plus more daily Ravens coverage here for you on the show, Monday through Friday, twice a day, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern time. Plus, we have instant reaction shows, bonus episodes, watch-alongs, the Squad Show, and the Everyday Club. So if you want to check out the Everyday Club, links in the description down below, as well as on the Locked On Ravens page on the Locked On website. But all right, let's dive into a little bit more about the stretches in the Ravens schedule and what I'm kind of noticing here early on. And I think when you play these teams is actually very important. And I think a prime example of this, honestly, is the Colts. You know, you look at week 1 for the Ravens playing the Colts. We don't know if Daniel Jones is going to be healthy or not in that game, if he's even going to be available to play in that game based off the injury he suffered last year, serious injury. And so if they were playing the Colts, if the Ravens were playing the Colts later in the season, I mean, you were going to have maybe Daniel Jones be back already at that point. He's kind of figured things out. He maybe is on a roll. But week 1, it's either he's going to be playing and either trying to like trust himself again. Maybe he gets off to a fast start, right? Maybe he's not even available and you play Anthony Richardson. I think that's a really good spot to be in if you're the Ravens here. So that in itself is really intriguing. And then look, I think when you get to the final part of the schedule where you have the Steelers, Browns, Bengals, Steelers, that last month stretch of AFC North games, health probably will play a factor down the stretch there. I mean, look, this is football. Injuries happen, unfortunately. Of course, you want everybody to be healthy, but just not the way it goes, unfortunately. So, you know, you have a stretch, and it's going to be not just Baltimore, but every team's going to have to deal with injuries, right? So, depending on who's healthy, who's not, like you want best on best. That's just the competitor in everybody, but that probably won't be the case. And, you know, I wish it was, but it's not. So, that could play a factor as well. But I think also when you look at how the schedule is quarterback wise for them, I think it's actually pretty good. Now they do have like that month of week 7 through week 10 where you're facing Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Herbert, right? That's a quarterback gauntlet in my opinion. But then you also have like a tier below, because we talked about that being like the second slate of games, week 7 through 12. So it's Burrow, Allen, Lawrence, Herbert, and then I guess a tier down, you have Bryce Young with Carolina and CJ Stroud with Houston, #1 and #2 picks a couple years ago. So there's that storyline in there as well. But I mean, look, early season, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson in week 1, Tyler Shuck in week 2, Dak Prescott week 3, Cam Ward week 4. I'll just say Michael Penix in week 5, and whoever the Browns have a quarterback in week 6. I mean, Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Those, I think, are solid quarterbacks to play when you're really trying to find yourself and just figure out who you are as a team, right? Like the Ravens, they have a lot of players from the last handful of seasons still on the roster. They did lose some players and whatnot, but you also have guys who are familiar with the organization, whether it's coaches coming back, players coming back, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the early season part, because again, with how bad the Ravens have started these last 2 years, where you're 0-2 to start 2 years ago, you're 1-5 last year, you need a quick start. And look, honestly, like part of the reason why I have them going 6-0 in those first 6 games is because the quarterback situations, where the Ravens generally do really well against first year, second year quarterbacks, and you're going to get Tyler Shuck there, you're going to get Cam Ward there, obviously, as well. Maybe it's Shedeur Sanders again. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. And even Michael Penix as well. And if it's Tua in Atlanta, okay, give me Tua in Atlanta then. It doesn't matter either which way. But you do have the situation. Then you have Baker coming out of the bye, and then I guess Aaron Rodgers twice. So like you're not playing like this crazy stretch of quarterbacks outside of that week 7 through 10 schedule. So that's where I like Baltimore's defense. I really think is going to bounce back in such a big way this year, like genuinely. And I know the Ravens had a poor year last year. I get it, but it's what have you done for me lately? And that's why I think the Ravens are underrated. And honestly, like, sure, the Ravens like being the underdogs. The Ravens like being that team. That's how we've seen that. Like, they haven't been overwhelming 1 seeds the times they've won the Super Bowl, right? Like, that's kind of how the Ravens have operated. So with the schedule, they're playing the second place schedule this year. I think they have to take advantage of that. Look, it's not going to be perfect this year. There will be growing pains. There will be things they have to sort out. Unfortunately, it's not going to go perfectly for the Ravens where they go 17-0 and just cakewalk to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, right? They're going to have to go through a lot this year. And, hopefully as the year continues to progress, we're going to find more and more out about them. They'll find more and more out about themselves. And that will all lead to a very successful 2026 season. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in on the show. Otherwise, be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along. Subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content coming up. Maybe some bonus episodes on the weekend if there are headlines. But if not, we'll be back here on Monday with our regularly scheduled programming. So be sure to stay tuned. And I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.